Well, first of all, I think I have to thank you all for the tremendous job you've done. Not only that it's 27 plus 30 other delegates from international NGOs, so it was 57 different opinions, different mandates to be negotiated into this document. But no, the workshop time was not even 4 hours to get your mandate also from the workshop. And still you came up with a document, or we all together came up with a document which has some clear messages in. It's not only nice keywords, there are very concrete demands inside. And I think that's a miracle made that heads of state and government would not be able to do in 4 hours. And so let me congratulate you very first. Then the second thing, it's very nice for me to see that you were all in contact with Berlin already. I have to admit, I'm surprised. I was not on the internet or on the SMS for the last 2 hours. Very unusual for me, but I've not been SMSing. But of course, that just reminds me how sad it is that actually we could not bring this message directly to the people meeting in Berlin 2 years ago. 2 years ago, there was the summit, the third summit of heads of state and government of the Council of Europe in Warsaw, and there it was possible that the youth summit held prior to the heads of state summit had a delegation, and right after Terry Davis, the Secretary General, was speaking, we had 3 minutes to bring the main messages. And I think this is the recognition that this tremendous work here would have deserved as well. I'm very happy to hear, though, that there are concrete steps. I was hoping for a plenary discussion in the Parliament, but we'll be happy to have it in the Youth Committee. I'm happy to hear that this is not the one-off event. I think the strength of this exercise was actually the national debates, the outreach to as many young people as possible, and I think that we, as youth organizations, are very determined and committed to bring this debate to the local level. So I hope many of us are translating these outcomes into the languages you work in, into the languages that is understood by the people you work with. Let me point out one more thing, which was the visa issue and mobility. I think talking to the European institutions, that is something very important. The new visa facilitation agreements with the Western Balkans were mentioned. I know that sports people and business people were granted a special status in there. It's not the case for youth work, it's the case for students, that's the first step. But I do think building stability in Europe, building democracy, youth organizations play a very important role, and this role has to be recognized by having a special status for easier visa procedures for these people. But also let me also get back to Belarus. What does the European Union do with Belarus? And here is much more difficult because the European Union as such cannot make a visa facilitation agreement there. But I would recommend that we all follow the German example. They have a bilateral agreement of visa waivers for young people, for civil society activists with Belarus. And I can only encourage all of you, go home to your governments and try to lobby for this. I know that organizations who are active in changing countries to democracies, on donors who put money into Belarus, they are very impatient, which means that they dropped youth and education from their programs. Youth and education for donors is something that is sustainable, that is long-lasting. So they dropped it because they're so impatient. And I admit I'm impatient too. I think the government in Belarus has been there for way too long and needs to be changed. But I'm also convinced this change will not be sustainable if the investments in youth and education stop. So one step that your governments can do is not only functioning as donors, but also allowing the young people of Belarus and the civil society activists to come to Europe, to join us, to be included in our civil society work. And this will be easier if your governments also agree on bilateral agreements for youth workers and civil society activists and have visa waivers for them. And I think this is what makes Europe strong, these very concrete measures that allow democracy to grow, that allow democracy to deepen and be really done by people and lived by people. So paper is patient. This is a nice declaration, but the declaration is only as much as you make out of it. And here I'm speaking to the institution, but also to all of you, hoping that you go back to the member states of this union and make sure the leaders of these member states will act accordingly. I'm sad I haven't had the opportunity to say this myself in Berlin, but I trust that you will bring this message there and make it even stronger.